I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the special village board meeting, April 10th. If everybody does stand, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa.
Present.
Trustee DeVivo.
Present.
Trustee Kajanis.
Present.
Trustee Nemec. Trustee Sabo.
Present.
Trustee Yukich.
Present.
Mayor Daley.
Present. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to make one.
Trustee Sabo?
Number 8 on the agenda has to do with the library. I'd like to move that up to number 1. I see the attorney is there. Attorneys are always on a time clock.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any issue with moving the library to the number 1 position on legislation and action items?
No.
Okay, we'll move 8 to 1, and then we'll what do you call it, go from there. Okay. Okay, so we're amending the agenda for the library. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of February 26, 2013?
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich,
Second.
second by trustee Costa. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, or all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, let's see here. The next portion of this meeting is reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. I'll start out. I'd like to congratulate trustee Costa and Yukich for getting reelected to their second terms in office. I would also like to congratulate Sharon Swees on getting elected as village trustee. The 3 successful trustee candidates will be sworn into office on Tuesday, May 14th, before the village board meeting begins. Tonight, the village board will hear a presentation from the village manager, Cam Davis, on the proposed budget for FY 2013-14. The presentation and budget is posted on the village's website, www.homerglenil.org, and copies are available for the public to inspect at the village hall. Under Tree City USA recognition, the Village of Homer Glen has once again earned the recognition of Tree City USA. This is the 4th year Homer Glen has received the national designation. Thank you to Assistant to the Village Manager, Heather Kokodinsky, Finance Director John Sawyers, and Development Service Administrative Assistant Sue Stylen for working on Homer Glen's recertification of this prestigious award. Administration and Finance Committee. The April 18th Administration and Finance Committee meeting has been canceled. I have directed staff to take the committee agenda items directly to the village board for consideration at the board meeting to be held on April 23rd. Under achievements, congratulations to the members of the 5th and 6th grade Homer Athletic Club Bowls team for going 18-0 and winning their championship. Congratulations also goes out to the Homer Junior High bowling teams for finishing top 10 at the Illinois Elementary School Association's annual bowling championship. Stargazing. I encourage everyone to bundle up and take advantage of the stargazing event this Friday, April 12th, from 8 to 10 p.m. Information is on the village's website at www.homerglenil.org. And that concludes the mayor's report. How about we start down with trustee Costa?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to report for the Fest Committee. Again, our Fest is scheduled for June 20th through the 23rd, which is Thursday through Sunday. Fireworks will be Thursday night, and in case the weather is not good for fireworks, the alternate date would be Friday. We have bands on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's beanbag tournaments, I believe, on Friday and Saturday. So hopefully you mark your calendars for June 20th to 23rd. Come out and enjoy the weekend. Also, just a reminder, Anybody that needs community service, it's a great time to get it, especially for your high school students. A lot of hours you can put in, and you can really get a lot of them knocked out toward your graduation requirements. For Homer Harvest Days, the committee is moving forward. Actually, we have the IGA in front of us tonight, which is the intergovernmental agreement between the village and the township. Once that is passed, then we can move forward with securing contracts and agreements with vendors and demonstrators for that event. That event is scheduled for September 7th and 8th. Again, community service time is great. We're always looking for any volunteers for all of our events. If you'd like to volunteer, please contact the Village Hall or the Township Administration Building. And just like to thank all the voters that came out yesterday. Weather wasn't the greatest, in the morning and then in the afternoon at times, but thank you to everybody who came out. It is important, I really feel, especially for local elections, to get out and cast your vote. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Costa. Trustee Yukic?
Thank you, Mayor. I did what Trustee Costa said. Thank you for coming out and voting. It was very important. At least yesterday was much better than today, but it was very fortunate for the amount that did turn out. Second, we had a meeting here a week ago Wednesday about burning. And a card went out to some of the residents saying that we had already passed an ordinance banning burning. We have not done that. All we are right now is in discussion of how we can remedy a problem between two groups. Half the people want to burn, half the people don't want to burn. What we want to do is we want to see if we can work it out to where everyone's happy and we don't change anything. What we feel right now is we need education for the people that are burning, and we need the people that aren't burning understand why the people have to burn. So we're going to have a meeting in June, but we are taking all ideas, comments, anything you can throw at us for your idea of what we can do to make this thing work. We want this community to work together. It's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Yukic. Trustee Sabo?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to comment on the Safety Committee, I did attend, I stayed there all the time. I witnessed the speakers and discussion pertaining to the burning outside, which was very important and very educational. The meeting was conducted very well. Trustee Costa and Trustee Yukic has expressed many times during that meeting that they were very receptive to seeking more information. Stargazing, the mayor has mentioned that already. It's from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is our 5th year to do stargazing, and we do 2 events a year. EMA will be there, and the time for viewing with these 3 astronomer groups is very interesting. Arbor Day, the Arbor Day tree planting will take place on Friday, April 26th at 10:30 at the Gooding Grove School. A Norway maple will be planted and at a selected location on the school grounds. The students have been selected to be part of the ceremony. We enjoy this when the students do participate. Rick Gomez of Instant Shade Tree Planting Inc. will be transplanting the tree and planting it. The public is invited to attend. The announcement about the Morton Arboretum, several events that they had on their website, but one of them pertained to environmental conservation after dark. It will be presented on April 17th at 7 p.m. at the Riverside Library. The public is invited. To quote the publicity for the program written by the Morton Arboretum, quote, "Our society's energy consumption for outdoor lighting has never gone down along with the increased energy, with increased efficiency. It has also steadily risen. Each decade we flood the outdoor environment with more light." At this presentation, Drew Carhart of Illinois Coalition for Responsible Outdoor Lighting will look at some of the many effects of man-made light and that having on the environment and also on ourselves, and what lighting, which is both environmental and socially responsible, will look like. The next topic is the lighting ordinance. The Environment Committee reported, since last year, the Environment Committee has reported that they have been recommending that one of the amendments to the lighting ordinance be the compliance date removal. And the Environment Committee had recommended since last year that it be removed. And when this idea was presented to the combined meeting with CED agreed. removal of the compliance date of 2018 will be presented along with other recommended changes agreed by CED and the Environment Committee. And the next meeting with this combined, the two groups will be, is to be determined since it was canceled on April 11th. Earth Day Arbor Day celebration will be on May 18th. We'll have many demonstrations to show attendees how materials can be recycled for reuse into a very worthwhile objects. The vendors fitting the theme in the arts and crafts category have an abundance of professional type products. The arts and crafts category has been expanded to encourage opportunities for sales of these creative items. It is not too late to send in an application. The Environment Committee is still seeking demonstrations, vendors, not-for-profit organizations, and residents from the Homer, Glen, and Homer Township community to participate. 60 participants are signed up to participate at this time, which exceeds last year's count in April. The committee is seeking sponsors, which are very important to help provide more educational opportunities for children and adults. A list of participants will be given to the village board in the newspapers in the near future. I'd like you to see the website at www.earthdayarborday.info and www.homerglen.org for more information. Sponsors so far for the event are Waste Management, Muir Plumbing, Nicor Gas, Willowbrook Ford, Costco, Apple Chevrolet, and Once Upon a Child. Jim Ludwig of Woodbine Golf Course and Tierling Nursery will be donating a 10 to 12-foot tree. As an in-kind donation, Home Depot will once again be working with children by bringing projects to make. Children have enjoyed this hands-on activity immensely. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sabo. Trustee K. Janice?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I appreciate it. As well, I would like to congratulate not only the residents of Homer Glen for coming out to vote yesterday, but also the re-election of Trustee Costa, Trustee Yukich, and soon-to-be sworn-in soon-to-be Trustee Swees. Congratulations. And as I said, congratulations to all of Homer Glen for coming out to vote. This is the American way. This is the American process, and you are all part of it. Coming up, we are trying to schedule out Community Economic Development Subcommittee with the Environmental Committee to finish long-awaited and possibly overdue reconciliation and rectifying some lighting ordinances in the village of Homer Glen. We look forward to meeting with them again. We're trying to secure some dates. We're trying to secure dates through my subcommittee, who are working people, so they're trying to look at their calendars to look at the best dates possible for themselves. We have made much progress on this situation that is facing all residents and our businesses as we go forward. This is a current ordinance that is in effect that we look at studying. We have studied it in due diligence with the Environmental Committee. We've had great dialogue with the Environmental Committee, and I look forward to the upcoming future discussions with the Environmental Committee. I feel that before long we could come to agreement on the best course of action going forward into the future for our community and our current residents and future businesses. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee K. Janice. Trustee DeVivo?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank the trustees for their re-election, and welcome, Sharon. You're going to have fun. Wait. Erin Hills Park bids are being reviewed, and we will have a recommendation for the board's meeting on April 23rd. And also, the next Park and Rec meeting is April 22nd. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeVivo. Is there a treasurer's report?
No, Mayor.
Is there a clerk report?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
How about the village attorney?
No report.
How about any task force chairpersons? How about any public safety officials? Okay. How about the village manager?
I'll save my comments for the presentation later.
Okay. All right, that concludes reports and communications from trustees, and we move on to public comment. Okay. First speaker, if you could step up to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, is Steve Balich.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Steve Ballard. I live at 12259 Derby Lane in Orland Park, which is actually home of Glen. I'm here because Representative Durkin recognized that we have a serious problem with raised medians going in at 159th Street. It would actually make that an expressway to Orland Park and Tinley Park. It would ruin our business district. So Representative Durkin, he organized a meeting with the Secretary of Transportation and IDOT for next Friday. And at that meeting, Renee Kozel will be there, Trustee Yukich, Trustee Costa, Pam Myers from the township, myself, Mike Frizzalone, the other county board member, and Bob Schmidt from Wilgo Camping, who's with John Prusak in charge of bags, 159. So my point here was just to inform the board that we're going to fight for the village, try to save our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The next speaker would be, is it Phil Lenza? Lenzini? Lenzini?
It's close enough, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
If I could first extend my appreciations personally for the board's action earlier to move the agenda items later in the meeting. But if I could introduce Dr. O'Brien, had an initial
Sure.
remark to make.
Sure. He's on public comment anyway.
Yes,
If you could give your name and address for the record.
certainly. My name is Phil O'Brien. I live at 13353 David Trail, Homer, Glen, Illinois. I'm the president and 15-year elected trustee for the Homer Township Library District. I'm also a 30-year resident and business owner in Homer, Glen, or Homer Township, I should say. I want to thank, again, the board and Mayor for allowing us to address this topic with you. For those of you who don't know, the Homer Township Library began an expansion project last summer. Our plan is to be completed by the fall of this year. This is being done at no cost to our mutual taxpayers through careful budgeting and planning by our management staff. I was a member of the first planning commission of Homer Glen when the village was incorporated, so I'm aware of the need for the LLC or letter of credit. Subdivisions were allowed without regard to planning for finishing roads, cutting weeds, or managing water once the developer bailed out in the process. However, the library is not a subdivision. We're not a developer moving out without fulfilling our responsibilities. Like the village of Homer Glen, we both collect tax monies from the same citizens to better our mutual community. We do not feel the collection and retention of the LLC by the village to the best interest of our mutual citizens. We maintain builder's risk insurance, performance bond, and warranty. The over $400,000 LLC is approximately 25% of our annual budget and places an undue financial burden upon the library. In conclusion, we feel that the LLC has been misapplied to the library, but we respectfully ask the board and mayor to release those LLC funds that have left.
Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Phil?
If you bear with me one more time, Ms. Kozalaha is the library director, also on your list, I believe. In this way, we'll at least group the topics together here.
That's fine.
Thank you. I'm Sherry Kozalaha. I live at 15326 Trailside Drive, excuse me, in Homer Glen. I'm a 30-year resident, and I've been the library director here for 13 years. We are really excited to be moving forward with this expansion project for the library. It's going to be a wonderful, proud moment for all of us when this comes forward and is completed. We have worked very hard on our budget for the last 12 years to be able to do this at no cost to the taxpayers. So it's a self-funded project. So that means that we're very cognizant of our budget and the limitations limitations and the opportunities that it presents to us. The library obtained the LOC at the request of the village. And this LOC is not just a piece of paper. I want to be clear and make sure everyone understands that this is our taking $438,000 worth of our cash and putting it into a restricted account that we can't access for anything library related until it's released by the village. And so this restricts, as noted, 25% of our annual budget. And in addition to the taxpayer money being restricted by the LOC, the library is also being assessed fees, bank fees, that total over $12,000. And that again is taken away from what our purpose of those cash monies are, the taxpayers' monies are, which is for library services. So we have our attorney here tonight. We also have Dan Leonardo, our construction consultant. And I encourage the board to review. We have a one-page handout that we'd like to provide, and to reduce the LOC to a zero amount. We will continue to work positively and cooperatively with the village, and we respectfully ask for consideration of this reduction.
Thank you.
And again, my thanks for your forbearance. My name is Phil Benzini.
Okay.
I'm a library attorney. I'm actually officed in Peoria. I gave the opinion of the library about 9 months ago that the letter of credit was not required by law because the origin was the subdivision ordinance that the village adopted, which really incorporated an older Will County subdivision ordinance, which I might also add has been replaced by Will County because of legal changes. In any event, the village didn't really, the library didn't really follow my advice, if you will. They firmly wanted to cooperate with village staff, best plan for both stormwater detention and runoff, lighting, all of those kinds of project aspects, because they wanted the best project, irrespective of details like this. But they were not a subdivider then or a developer then, and they're not now under the definitions of the ordinance, in my opinion. When it became clear that the letter of credit obligation or requirement is an expensive one, tying up funds, as you heard Sherry say, and bank fees, all of us are frankly making Harris Bank kind of wealthy on this operation. And we have an opportunity to get back some of that money and not pay more money. If you adopt your resolution as proposed, either of the options as proposed, 1307 tonight, we'll have additional fees. Irony of irony. Because the banks charge for an amendment, which is a reduction, unless we go to zero. So our request respectfully is that you modify that resolution and make effectively zero instead of either the $130,000 or $150,000 in those two options that are on your agenda. I understand, I respect that staff does not feel they have the authority to do that. That is a board action, and I believe that's the case. We don't believe the subdivision ordinance applies to us. But just for your information, if it did apply to us, you have an invalid ordinance. Because your ordinance has not been amended to comply with state statute that was changed about 2 years ago. I'd be happy to go into detail about it, but Mr. Horvath was kind enough to call me today. We've spoken about it. And again, from our point of view, the ordinance shouldn't apply to us at all. So it's not our question. The adoption of a resolution like on your agenda, reducing the letter of credit obligation to zero satisfies us, saves our taxpayers, actually you personally, payment of these fees. We might even be able to get back some of the fees that have already been paid. So that's our request. I'd be happy to answer questions if any of you have it. Mr. Horvath doesn't answer, and we'll be here until agenda item, if that's your preference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we get that. I believe the next speaker would be Phil Hartz.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees, staff.
Hey, Phil, you can pull, yeah.
5128 LaGrange Road in Northern Park. I've been a builder on the south side for about 30 years now. And what I read on your agenda coming up for tonight on Monday morning was very disturbing to me. As we all know, the builders have recently seen some light at that time that the now was the movement in the economy and with builders. The economy has been rough on homeowners, businesses, banks, and developers. What few developers left is want to work with, what few developers are left who want to work with the banks and the towns. That's our goal. What I see on the agenda tonight regarding a moratorium in the three communities, the territory the village wants to work with the developers or these developers. I was told in January, when I originally came into the village and wanted to purchase some lots, that the village was working, going to go ahead and work with these developments and come to some resolution. That isn't what I see on the agenda tonight. A moratorium creates a stoppage of any movement in these three communities. Builders can't get building permits, banks can't sell the lots, where builders and developers defaulted on the properties. And this presents a bigger problem for the values of the existing homes, when nothing happens and everything in development is stopped. What is the reason for the moratorium? Improvements can't be completed, are not going to be completed. Why should this fall on existing builders who purchase lots or homeowners and their existing homes? It appears to me that developers, builders, and village and homeowners are all in this mess together, and we should work towards a solution. The village didn't make, what happened was the village didn't make sure the homeowners were protected by helping the LOCs, that's letter of credits current, and let the letter of credits expire. A moratorium hurts the community, the town, and the businesses. Why not be with the developers, and if they are still around, and look for a viable solution without stopping the development? I'd like you to reconsider your stance on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Pat Cleary, if I have that right? Pat Cleary. 708-301-1567. Okay. Patrick Connolly.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Patrick Connolly. I'm president of Moore Builders. I am also president of the Homeowners Association of Cypress Point and a current member of the Home Builders Association Board of Directors of the Southwest Suburban Home Builders. I'm opposing the moratorium as well in terms of stopping any building permits from being able to be obtained. We are just now, the last 2 months, starting to see the phones ringing. We have interest in this neighborhoods in our town here. And I was surprised that this moratorium proposal came about so fast and really shouldn't be. I think we should try and work together and negotiate some type of settlement that would appease everyone. And I look forward to working with the village again.
Thank you. Tom Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Tom Hahn, 13907 West 159th Street. As a person with an interest in one of the properties filed in this moratorium and also owner of lots in other subdivision, I'm hoping that you'll make clear what the criteria is for the moratorium so that we, in other subdivisions and other undeveloped or lot owners of vacant lots, can plan their business and know what exactly could possibly be happening to the lots that they have in other subdivisions. And secondly, I'm just wondering how something could get to the legislative, this far along in the process without the people that are property owners even being notified or no discussion whatsoever. You know, we just read about it in the agenda, or somebody calls us up and says, oh, did you see what's on the agenda? So, you know, not only this moratorium, but there's been some letters of credit called, and it's just difficult to understand how the action could go that far without any notification whatsoever, phone call, letter, anything to the developer or property owners.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. Okay, we're moving 8 to 1, I understand. Let's see here.
Suspension.
Yeah. H8 moved to H1, which is staff has prepared 2 options for the board to choose from. Option A would be the approval of Resolution 13-007A, authorizing a $286,885.25 reduction in the letter of credit number HACH 378268OS for the Homer Township Public Library from the current LOC amount of $438,897 to the new LOC amount of $152,011.75. It is understood that the library can request supplementary reductions as additional work is completed. Option B. Option B would be the removal of Resolution 13-007B, authorizing a $308,272.10 reduction of letter of credit number HACH 37826807 for the Homer Township Public Library from the current LOC amount of $438,897 to the new LOC amount of $130,624.90. It is understood that this option eliminates the 10% multiplier as specified in the village's subdivision ordinance. Development Service Director Salmovich will now explain the 2 options available for the board to choose from. Before Mike says anything, I'd like to address this. One of the reasons why we have LOCs is because you see what happened here in this village. One of the situations with the library, we've bent over backwards to try to help you out with this project. From day one, there's been problems with this project. You hired an engineer, the detention pond was improperly done, you had to fire that engineer, you had to redo the detention pond. We made promises to the adjacent property owners that we wouldn't flood them out. Right now, Mike has a whole list for you. You don't have the restrictors in the overflows of the pond. You don't have the building done, and you're here asking for a total reduction of the letter of credit. To me, that doesn't fly. But anyway, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Upon receiving the request for the reduction, staff did perform inspections of the site and went through the paperwork and the documentation that we were provided from the library. There were some items that were included in the reduction that were either not fully completed, or typically erosion control items, we do not reduce those until the end of the project. As far as with the 2 options, the first option, option A, reflects a reduction in accordance with the ordinance, with standard ordinance. Basically, we went through, like I said, we went through the items. Whatever we could reduce, we did reduce. Whatever the remaining items, with the 10% multiplier, it comes to a reduction to $152,011.75. Option B reflects a variation from the ordinance, and what it does is it includes the same reductions that were done in option A, but it eliminates the 10% multiplier. So the same items are being reduced. The only difference between the 2 is that 10% multiplier, which is the
guarantee. We don't typically call it the 10% multiplier, but it's the guarantee that we typically hold.
Okay, before I open it up for any questions for Mike, a couple other things that popped into my mind with issues with this project. Before a fire suppression system could be inspected, they drywalled the ceilings. When we asked about the detention pond, why the plans weren't followed, they said that Robinson Engineering was supposed to inspect it. Robinson Engineering told us point blank they were not hired for that purpose. So there's been a lot of issues with this project. It will be, at the end of the day, a wonderful library. There's no doubt about that. I'm not saying that. But I've had just too many problems with unfinished projects that, at the end of the day, we don't have any recourse as a village. If the library says, well, we're going to get to it, we can't afford it now, but maybe in a year, there's no money held back, there's no nothing. And one of the things that the library brags about constantly is the use of the library. 600 people a day. Well, I have to make sure that building's safe, it's completed, the detention is done correctly so that the adjacent property owners don't have issues, because there's a lot of use over there. There's football fields right behind it, detention not properly done, you're gonna flood them. The township supervisor is right next door. I certainly don't want to put water in her basement. So with that all being said, that's the purpose of having LOCs. And anybody that would like to ask Mike a question or have a recommendation, feel free. Okay, then let's see here. Is there a second?
We haven't made a
Oh,
motion.
is there a motion?
I want to make a motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
The motion is to consider for approval resolution number 13-007, a resolution reducing the LOC to 0.
And I'll second.
Okay, you have a first and a second.
I'm sorry, was that A or B?
It's C.
Neither one, they're asking for the reduction to go to 0. Okay, we have a first and a second on that. Is there any discussion?
Yes, actually, where I have a issue with this, and I understand the LOCs are important, but as you've said a few times, that's for subdivisions, and this isn't a subdivision. This is a individual property that is government owned. It's our taxpayers pay for it, and we're tying up our own money for something that, if I have this correctly, they have safeguards in place to make sure that this does go through. They have a builder's risk, they have an insurance on it, they have a performance bond on it. And Mike, have anything that you've asked for that we have, I'll put myself in their place. When I built a house, I don't know how to build a house. I don't know what has to be done, so I do rely on my builder, my general contractor, whatever the case may be, and sometimes they don't fulfill something. But we still have the luxury of being able to go in there and take a look and tell them this has got to be fixed. So with that being said, did we have an issue when we brought it before them that this had to be fixed, and they said no?
Initially, when we brought the detention issue up, yes, they were reluctant to repair it. The problem with the detention pond was the berms for the detention facility were being constructed of topsoil right on top of the sod, or the existing grass out there. Since that's going to be holding water and it has water, a load behind it that needs to be constructed of a structural material, it was in the plans. So like I said, when we brought that up to the library, they were very reluctant to repair that and correct it. So we did try to convince them and make sure that it was, because what would happen is topsoil, it's very porous.
It would have
Obviously,
rolled
it's
right
going to
away.
flood, it's going to fail.
Right.
It's not a matter of.
No, and I understand that, but when we did bring it up to them, was the problem fixed?
Ultimately.
Okay.
You know, George, you had, or Trustee Yukich, you had a question, or you made a statement about the subdivision. We just don't make all this stuff up. Let me have the attorney give you his take on the subdivision versus not a subdivision.
Okay.
They're a developer in this particular instance. They're an owner and a developer of property, and they're installing public improvements.
You need to pull your microphone.
I'm sorry. The library is the owner and developer of property. They're installing public improvements, and so certain provisions of the subdivision ordinance would apply to them. I realize that this ordinance was adopted, it was the Will County ordinance, which was adopted by the village board in 2001. It may not have been updated, but that does not make the ordinance void. There may be requirements to bring it up to speed with respect to changes in the law, but the ordinance itself is not void. So they are in fact a developer, they are developing public improvements, and so the board, the village is within its authority to request this, and to have some form of security to make sure that the village's interests are protected. And while they do have a performance bond with their builder, and they can go to their builder and request their builder to make the necessary improvements or to repairs or whatever it may be, that performance bond does not work to the benefit of the village. It's between them and their builder, or them and their contractor. It does not directly protect the village. Builder's risk insurance does nothing for the village. That has nothing to do with assuring that the public improvements will be properly constructed in accordance with the requirements of our ordinance. So the ordinance itself does apply. In terms of what you want to do with this letter of credit, that's entirely a board decision.
Let me ask you this, Kerry. If you wanted to go with a zero letter of credit, would you have to change the ordinance before you could go with that? Because we're basically voting on something that's, according to our legal counsel, in direct contradiction to our ordinance.
It would be a policy decision of the board. There are other types of security that could be created pursuant to Illinois statute. One would be a surety bond for the benefit of the builder, which is not as good, or for the benefit of the village, it is not as good a form of security as a letter of credit. Another would be a cash deposit that they could make with the village. They could then eliminate the letter of credit and eliminate the cost of the credit. The village would have to segregate the funds, deposit them into some form of investment, and then the other type of security is what they call a commitment from a lender, which I really don't know what that really involves. But there are other ways to address the situation if they care to. The one way that they could eliminate all cost for credit would be to deposit security with the village. That's available to or deposit cash with the village. That's available to any type of developer or owner under Illinois law. So there are other ways to address this, yes.
Okay,
you could make a policy decision if you cared to, but I don't necessarily think you want to set a precedent for one, and then I'll guarantee you the developers are going to line up, as they have already come in this evening, to complain about the village's attempt to address other problems in other subdivisions where credit was not deposited, and now we're trying to address it.
Okay.
And yes, I did talk with Mr. Lenzini at length this afternoon, and we discussed the various types of securities that could be deposited or created, and we also discussed the issues that they're presenting this evening. But that's as far as we got. There was no agreement reached one way or the other.
How far away is the building from completion?
The new addition will be completed probably in June. We'll be moving into it in June. And the final remodel of the existing space will be completed in September.
Is there a way that the library could post either a cash donation or cash security that would be held in basically some type of account or escrow until you're complete, and then release it at that point in time? I go back to saying this is highly unusual to have buildings not complete and not have any security whatsoever.
The short answer to that question is no, not without cost to taxpayers. Mr. Horvath will admit this or not, but you're laboring under misapprehension. A, your ordinance is defective in all this respect. B, I'm talking about the state statute that mandates this. You have no choice, home rule or not. And it is not a choice, unlike what we were told 9 months ago. It is not a choice of the village, the municipality, what type of security we would submit if we're even required to. I understand we disagree. I say we're not, you say we are. But you do not choose. The municipality does not choose letter of credit, commitment, cash, or surety bond. It's very clear in the 39.
No, I'm not saying the municipality
And it's our
chooses. You choose, but you have alternatives that would eliminate your cost of your letter of credit.
So the answer to your question really is no. And if this resolution and motion were approved, then the problem is avoided, basically, without cost.
The problem is avoided as far as the letter of credit goes, that it doesn't exist, but the building isn't complete and won't be complete till June.
That's correct. You basically take it on the guarantee of a government body that we're going to do everything that's asked to correct or to, as planned.
This board can do whatever they want, but let's put it this way. We've had numerous issues over there, and I think it's a bad practice to get involved in not having letters of credit. That's why this room has people in it tonight. Mike, I believe you had a question?
Yes, a couple questions and comments, mainly comments. I do agree that holding back taxpayer dollars and costing taxing body additional dollars that can be used for the residents' use is out of the ordinary. We do have letters of credit for protection to the village, and again, I believe that's really looks at more at subdivisions where a developer's coming in, building homes, he's got to put streets in, sidewalks, detention, lighting, finish the subdivision so it's a good quality unit. I've been in construction 34 years. I do some heavier commercial, but mainly industrial. One thing that has always held over the contractor and the owner is that you don't get an occupancy permit until the work is completed to the ordinance or the statute or the laws that apply. Being two governments, if the work is not done and you don't get an occupancy permit, no matter LOC or not, you're not going to be able to move in. Now, you are going to have to, tell the public why you have an X dollar unit that you just put up, and we can't go in there because we didn't put the tension in right, or the curbs aren't done, or the heating system doesn't have the right system. And so, personally, I do not have an issue with reducing down to zero. I think there are safeguards here. The two governments should work closely together. Again, I believe we have the final say-so and the sign-off on the occupancy permit.
Correct.
To me, I believe that's way different than a developer coming in that can sell. Nothing against developers. God bless you guys. You do great for our community. But it's a little different where a developer can come in and, in certain instances, sell 80% of the project and walk away and never finish it. That's a little bit different. I don't feel personally that we're going to be setting precedent if we do this. This is between two government entities that are using taxpayer dollars, and it's not between a village and a private developer. That's my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any, Trustee Yukich?
And I agree with Mike, Trustee Costa. This is taxpayer money. I don't believe we would have an issue, but like Mike says, if we do it under occupancy and you can't use it, then it falls on you why it can't be used. And to tie up the money, and I don't think that the village should start holding money, but my issue is still, this is not a subdivision, because by the explanation in this, in our ordinance says a division of a lot. It's not being divided, they're putting basically an addition on the property. I agree with Trustee Costa that I think we should bring it down to zero, put it in the hands of our staff, that if it isn't fixed the way it's supposed to, they don't get an occupancy and they can't use it. I think that would put them in a situation where they're going to do what's right, and I believe we're going to do what's right in the first place. As for trying to fix some things, I think anyone that has something done and all of a sudden they're told that it's gonna cost you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 more to fix something that they already have done, they're gonna fight a little bit until they understand that it's an issue that does have to be corrected. But I agree with Trustee Costa that I think it should be brought down to zero.
Okay, then what I would recommend is that if that's the way you feel about issues with municipal buildings or sister governments, that the ordinance should be changed. We should work on, if you want to go with this, that's fine. That's why we have a board voting on this stuff. But I also think behind this, we should amend the ordinance to reflect a clearer explanation of subdivision versus what is considered a government agency, because you heard it from our legal representation, is he believes this is, a contractor owner situation. So there's a motion on the floor to redo.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Kate Janis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we are ready to embark on setting policy, a different direction that we've been taking over the last several years through ordinances and legislative body on setting a new course of policy. We know in the past we've kind of been left holding the bag without LOCs for whatever reason, whatever argument. Yes, I agree that this is a government body that's a taxing authority to our residents. The library does a fantastic job, they always have, out in our community for our residents and our students. But at the same vein, we have to also protect our residents and our students and our taxpayers. And as we embark on this question here, we are, again, I'll state, setting a new precedence for this board without full discussion on this agenda item by going towards this avenue. I believe we have to pursue on this cautiously, not only for this situation, but I think we need to be pragmatic and due diligent on our thought process as we deliver the question to the table and to the dais. So for that reason, I will still open it up to the rest of the dais, and I believe maybe other trustees may have comments on that, but that's my feeling. So.
Trustee DeVivo?
I'm sort of agreeing with everybody here, but, I do feel we are setting policy, and I don't have a problem with that. If we are saying that government bodies should not have to post LOCs, I know we just recently reduced some fees to government bodies. I really do think we should do those types of things. And I don't have a problem going to zero. The occupancy permit would really protect us. We're just going to have to watch this project very closely and make sure that everything goes the way it is, because it is our responsibility to make sure that building is safe. We can't just turn around and say, yeah, go ahead and build anything you want. It doesn't work like that. So I understand the LOCs. I understand that they're for public improvements. In this particular case, I think that most of the LOC would have been reduced anyway. It's really not that much that's left, so I'm okay with that. But again, and Mayor, I agree with you. We need to change whatever our ordinance says that would allow us to remove LOCs, maybe some of the fees also from government bodies that want to construct in the village. Do the schools have to pay all these things? They just do what they want anyway, don't they? That's been my experience. The schools don't have to pull all these things, do they?
That would be a question for Carrie.
So,
Mayor, if I could,
When schools engage in construction, they work under the state statute dealing with construction for school facilities. There is some interplay between the municipality and the schools, but generally speaking, they are in a different category completely than a library.
Well, I think that we need to change our ordinance and, update it so that we make sure we don't get in this situation again.
Okay, well, I would suggest,
Just
go
one
ahead,
more thing.
Trustee.
When Homer Township Highway Department did the building that they did, do we ask for an LLC? If we put up a village hall, would we have to put up an LLC on ourselves?
Well, If
Do you
I'm,
understand what I'm
if I'm
saying?
understanding the genesis of this issue, and I don't know what brought this about to begin with, but you don't need an LOC for everything that's constructed, but when you're working on public infrastructure and public improvements, generally speaking, some form of security is necessary to assure that the work being done will be done in accordance with the village requirements, or will be completed. And so, I mean, it's not as simple as, well, do you need it for this or do you not need it for that? My understanding is this was required as a result of the project that was presented to the village to begin with. And it was discussed at the time, and there was little, if any, pushback by the developer to say no. And so it started off in this fashion, and...
Are you talking about the library, though?
I'm talking about the library, yes. It started off in this fashion, and there wasn't, is my understanding, there wasn't a dispute. Now it's become an issue because the library has a significant amount of its money tied up with the bank, and the bank, whoever it is hitting them pretty hard with fees.
Okay.
That's what's brought this about at this point in time. I don't think at the time when the matter arose, the letter of credit was something that was disputed. So,
Well, all right.
I'd like to respond to that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Margaret.
I believe that the library was under pressure to build. And being under pressure, they had no other alternative but to sign this LOC. Otherwise, they couldn't go forward, and they wanted to start. The library is a taxing body. It is not going away. I believe one government should help another, and that's why I made the motion to reduce the LOC down to zero. The building department of Homer Glen has the ability to use its checks and balances, which it has already. And I believe they will continue to be diligent about doing that. The library building is, I pass it practically every day, has become such an attractive asset on 151st Street and an asset to this community. I hate to see their money being tied up, which is really our residents' money, and that it cripples them with their budget to be tied up for 2 years, even 1 year, would be devastating. That's why I am voting for this motion.
Well, the policy question is the 1 year that we reduced from 2 years to 1 year on holding a percentage of the LOC. That is easy enough to do. That's a policy issue. The question here in the different options that we have in the motion that you made is it's contrary. That's what I'm saying. No, everybody on this board, so you get it straight, thinks this is going to be a wonderful asset to the community. It's if you want to make exceptions like this, it's your prerogative according to what the attorney just told you. My recommendation is that you change the ordinance then, and you clarify what a subdivision means compared to a private builder, and everything we discussed. That's all I'm saying. So we have a motion on the floor.
Mayor, one thing if I could, it
Sure.
would be helpful from a staff perspective so that we don't run into problems down the road. A majority of the board has indicated that you would want to see the public improvements on this site completed before an LOC is granted. I mean, before an occupancy permit is granted. It would be very helpful so that staff is not held to blame later when the public improvements potentially are not completed and the library wants the occupancy permit. If you could make that a part of your motion, since a majority of you have indicated that's your will. If you could make that a part of your motion, that would make it much easier on staff, and everybody in the room would be on the same page. The public improvements have to be completed before the occupancy permit is granted. That would be very helpful if you could do that.
Okay, can you give me since I made the motion, can you give me a reduced wording on that to put in?
I will leave that to the village attorney. He was listening very
Your
intently.
motion would be to in essence, to reduce the letter of credit to a balance of 0, but to withhold direct staff to withhold issuance of the final occupancy permit until all public improvements are completed in accordance with village requirements. That would be your motion.
And the only caveat I would give you to that is, of course, the village is very, our standard operating procedure is to allow temporary occupancy permits. So, so you could, there'll be a request for a temporary occupancy, and so I think if it just said occupancy permit, that would be very clear. No temporary or permanent occupancy permit, because I think I think the will of the board is that the public improvement should be completed before the library is being utilized. If a temporary occupancy permit is granted and the library is utilized for an entire year before the public improvements are completed, I don't think that's what you're looking for. So I would just urge a little change in the attorney's wording that would include both temporary and permanent, any occupancy permit, period. Then we'd all be very clear and everybody would know what had to be completed.
Trustee Costa?
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask a question of the library board then?
Sure.
Would that be would you agree
I'm
to
sorry
that?
to say that I don't think that is the way I heard it in the distinction that the manager's making. The plan is to, maybe this is news, but I thought it was well known. The plan has always been to complete this additional structure by June, locate shelving, staff, furniture into that, and then address the old section. Now, you're telling us you don't want us to move into this essentially, I gotta back up.
Yeah, that my comment has nothing to do.
If you don't mind, let me make one distinction that no one yet has made, which was part of this. You got very close to making it. The letter of credit was not limited to the public improvements on this site. This was the initial battle that I was last involved with last year. The staff demanded the letter of credit went to the entire site improvements, not just to public improvement. That's part of the reason it was so dramatically more expensive. It tied up so much more money than it could have been. And of course, I'm in a position that I don't believe the ordinance applied at all. In fact, it was invalid.
That's not correct.
So that's where the $487,000 letter of credit came from, and the fees accordingly. If we were talking about just the public improvement portion of this, it'd be a dramatically smaller component. But to hook.
Mayor, if Michael could address that issue when the speaker is done, that would be great.
Actually,
Just maybe to make the point, to block temporary occupancy of this new space in June when it's completed until the entire site is done, will basically shut down the building for 6 months. I can't see the benefit.
The statement regarding the letter of credit for the entire site is incorrect. The letter of credit was held for the grading, storm, and erosion control, and then that work actually within the 151st Street right-of-way. So the drainage, of course, and the grading, that affects the adjacent properties, and that, in a sense, is a public improvement. There were several items, paving, sewer, sanitary sewer, water main, concrete work, things of that nature that were not included in the letter of credit because we were just trying to go for those types of public improvements that, again, have an effect if they are done improperly or incorrectly or fail, that the village would have to go in if necessary to pay, restore, repair. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. If I can finish my comment, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Trustee Costa.
The reason why I wanted to clarify that was because the way it was read with final occupancy and no temporary permits, because as stated, they're going to move into the addition and then do the rest of the work. So typically, in a situation like this, that would be a temporary occupancy permit, correct, for the additional part, so that they can work in the other half, but I was talking about is final occupancy. So, I mean, again, I agree that if we don't grant a limited one or a temporary one, then they would have to stop everything right down and shut down a library, which we can't do in our community.
Well, I think what we're concerned, the occupancy permit doesn't cover the interior work, okay? The letter of credit. We're talking about the detention, the road work, Okay, that's what we're talking about. It has no correlation with shelves being moved and things of that nature. So what I really want is I just want us all to be on the same page so that we don't have to come back again and go through this all over again. If you'd like to make it final occupancy, you can do that, but my point on that is the final occupancy may not be for quite a long time, okay? And so just so everybody's on the same page, in case public improvements are not completed, and that's extending into 2014 or something like that. I just want everybody to understand. So, but just some kind of wording about the occupancy would be helpful, so we don't have to come back and do this again.
If they go, and again, I'm sorry to ask the questions, Mayor, I just want to make sure I understand everything.
That's what we're here for.
When they get ready to, when the library, I don't mean to say they, when the library gets ready to move into the addition, do they have to apply for a, oh, I'm sorry, when the library, I'm such a quiet guy, when the library wants to move the equipment into the new addition, do they have to apply for temporary occupancy of that addition, or no?
I'll let Joseph answer that, okay, since he's the, is he here? Joe?
Joseph.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, but then once they move in there then, and they do the work on the other part of the building, then final occupancy will come when the project is complete? Is that my understanding?
Well, that's what I'm asking of the
Okay.
board to determine if your definition of the project is complete is all of the public improvements plus the building, okay? I mean, I
Okay.
need some direction from the board so
Gotcha.
that if the public improvements aren't complete and they want a final occupancy and I'm holding it up, I don't get skewered. So I need some direction.
But it would still be necessary to give the library the temporary permit to get into the new addition, otherwise they can't complete the project.
That was the point of my question, to
Gotcha.
try to clarify
Okay.
it, because everybody was just saying occupancy, and there's two types of occupancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely think that, that there's two separate components there. There's rehab and the brand-new side of the building. So when the brand-new side of the building's open, it is part of the entire building, so it would be a temporary occupancy for the part that's completed. And you would then shut off the other half, if I'm having it correct, work on that, and then you get an occupancy, a full occupancy of the building.
Okay.
How far are you from the outside, getting everything finished up on the outside? Between the retention, whatever, you know? 'Cause that's part of what you're talking about is where there's a bigger issue. That's what the LOC is for.
Correct.
So where are you at with that?
I thought your ranking was 15%, the last thing I saw, if that's still accurate, but.
No, it varies depending on the items. I mean, there's some items that haven't even been started yet. I don't know what their construction schedule is.
Due to weather?
Some of it is definitely due to weather. Obviously, some of it is paving. Some of it is still, the front detention pond hasn't been completed yet. There's still some grading issues on the site as well. Repairing 151st Street, things of that nature.
Is your general contractor here?
Yeah, he's sitting right there.
Manager.
Okay.
We're not the general contractor, Dan Leonardo with Independent Construction. We're the library's owner's representative.
All right,
So
where are you
we're not
at?
the general contractor, we're a consultant to the
Okay,
library.
but where are you at with where we have an issue right now? Where are you at?
The the final site work cannot be completed until the second phase of the construction is done, due to construction that has to happen that will impact the site work.
Are you talking the back half of the library?
Back half of the library, the ring road, the fire access road around the building cannot be completed. The site cannot be graded until the second phase is done, or more closer to complete. So I guess the short answer is that the final site work cannot be done until the fall.
So, with that being said, you do understand you have no money secured to do these final improvements that can't take place till the fall if you go to zero, which is exactly what happened with the LOCs in subdivisions where, they were released, not renewed, never asked for. And now we're sitting here with nothing to finish up these subdivisions, and we're giving back all the money to the library. It's not normal course of action, I can tell you that.
Well, we're going back to subdivision again. I still don't feel this is a subdivision. And, what I've been hearing for the last few months out of this board is that we're trying to make it a little bit easier for builders to come here to be able to get the stuff, so we're not putting so many hurdles in front of them to get the stuff done. And when we're gonna do it to one of our own government bodies, I don't think we're trying to help out anybody. I don't believe that the library is going to do anything that's wrong, and if that's the case, do the temporary permit, and if we have to wait till fall, I just think that what we're doing right now is wrong. We should be helping them out. It's our taxpayers' money that we're holding on to, and that they would be losing with the bank.
George, we are helping them out. If you went with one of these options, you're lowering the letter of credit by $300 and some $1,000. Do you realize that the way this project's been run, we had to call them up 4 months ago to tell them, please apply to reduce the letter of credit. Now, you know, they've gone through different engineers. You have a project manager here. You know, all I'm trying to say is at the end of the day, I believe it's going to be a beautiful building. But, you know, to have no money, once again, to secure municipal improvements, I don't like stuff like that. Trustee Sabo?
So I understand it, and I don't know all the towns that have not required an LOC, but I'd like to ask our director of the library here, is my statement true?
Well, first of all, we did some research. We called the Illinois State Library and we spoke to their staff. They had their library development staff call us back, and they had never heard of a library being subject to an LOC. So, you know, that was our first step. The second step was this chart that we checked with 20 libraries, some of them significant project costs greater than ours, $9 million, 22 million Orland Park Library. None of these libraries, and we stopped at 20, were required to submit an LOC. None. And so this is one of the strongest arguments I can express to you, is that we're a governmental entity. We're tax supported. We have our experts in place. We have our architect was the Wisconsin Architect of the Year. They won the Architect of the Year award. We're complying with every single thing, cooperating with the village in every single way. We're not walking away from this. We've been here serving the community with excellence for 30 years. Libraries are my passion. There is no way that we're going to bring something substandard forward when we have spent 12, 13 years trying to fund this without going to referendum and imposing a tax on the district. And we've been able to do that. So we have been monitoring our money very conservatively. We have put every guarantee in place. And I think this is over-regulation. It is not true that we were not concerned about this. I have expressed my concern to the mayor and to the village manager verbally about the LOC, and that we have a difference of opinion, and that my elected board wants to bring this forward to discuss and coordinate something of benefit to all of our taxpayers with you. The LOC simply does not apply. And to see the glass as half empty instead of half full and imply that we are not going to do due diligence on this project, I just think is irresponsible to imply that.
Nobody's saying that this is going to be substandard. Everybody says it's going to be a beautiful building. What we're worried about is how long is it going to take to complete the improvements that you're responsible for? And should the question be no money held back to guarantee that these things are going to be done? Will the library be back here saying that our levy can't support finishing these improvements? We don't have the money. We ran into a problem. We're going to have to do it over time. You know, that's the issue. That's all. Nobody's saying it's going to be substandard.
I think that we have all the assurances in place to meet all of that concern.
Thank you. Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Is there any further discussion?
Well, we haven't reworded it because it hasn't been reworded for the motion yet. Carrie had mentioned it, but we also
for the temporary
we got to go to the
temporary
temporary
occupancy.
permit so they can get in and do it. Go to phase two. So, you want to reword it?
Okay.
Carrie's motion, which was, I think, before I asked for clarification, was that permanent, right, the permanent
Right,
occupancy, final occupancy would not be until all the public improvements. I think that's probably the direction you want to
As I
go.
understand from the attorney, that would not support them. Is that correct?
No, that
He's
would
concerned
support them.
about
He's saying
temporary.
temporary wouldn't
You
support
say it
them.
would support them.
Final would be okay.
Yes, it was the insertion by the manager of the temporary permit
Okay,
that carries
gotcha.
language that's troublesome.
Okay.
That would prohibit the movement.
The motion is
I
I,
think Carrie's language was approved.
the motion as I stated it, Margaret, would only require the public improvements to be completed prior to issuance of the final occupancy permit.
Okay,
Which would mean both halves.
okay, I will amend it to that.
Okay, so trustee Sabo, who had the first, is amending her motion to reflect the attorney's description of the motion. And trustee.
I amend mine and I second mine to the amendment.
Trustee Yukich amends his motion to reflect what the attorney structured as a motion. Is there any further discussion?
Quick question, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
And this question is going to be to the village attorney, if I may. By going forward with this motion, I understand that we are in a government, we're in a, I'm sorry, Bob. I apologize. Oh, sorry. I apologize. I'm pretty soft-spoken individual. No, my question here is for the village attorney. Going forward this, and I understand that we are in a cooperative effort with our fellow government bodies on the library. But my question is this, I'm still a little concerned as we go down this avenue. How would this affect our current policy in place for our LOCs? Does this affect it? Does it damage it? Does it ding it? Or do we need to go first, step by step, first take care of a policy issue, and then go forward with this motion and have a vote on it?
I think you're giving special consideration to the library, taking into account its financial requirements, and you can look then at the substance of the ordinance as it concerns this and develop a policy if you care to, but this will not be precedential for anyone else, okay?
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Before I take my vote, I just want to say that, Sherry and Dr. O'Brien, this LOC and the permitting fees and all this stuff is not taken lightly by this village. We have, as you can tell by some of the developers who have come here to speak, we have a problem here. We've had 12 subdivisions investigated that are under construction that are substandard, literally substandard. Detention hasn't been done correctly, the roads aren't complete. I mean, they're a mess. And I understand that we need LOCs, I really do. I think that we should have had them for almost everything because we get stuck holding the bag. And you want to talk about taxpayers' dollars. Who do you think is going to pay to fix these subdivisions? It's going to be the taxpayers because ultimately that's your money. That's what's coming into this village to support it. So we have to make a decision sometime down the line how much we're going to support in these subdivisions. Now, that being said, I do agree that that government bodies, we shouldn't have an LOC on them, and we need to change the policy. We need to correct it. We shouldn't be charging each other, and we wouldn't charge ourselves, I'm sure, if we were building something. So this makes sense to me, and I do agree we should reduce it to 0, so my answer is yes.
Okay.
Trustee
Glen?
Kajanis?
I want to say, I will say yes.
Trustee Sabo?
Yes.
Trustee Yukich?
Yes.
Motion carries. Good luck. Okay. That was 8, so we'll go back to H1 now. Okay. Is there a motion to authorize the village manager to petition the Plan Commission to initiate a text amendment that would amend the signage regulations in regards to secondary signs as shown in Attachment A?
So moved.
First by trustee Costa?
Yes.
First by trustee Costa,
Second.
second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, there haven't been any changes in the wording since Aaron gave the presentation at your last meeting, and the general consensus among the trustees at that time was that you were supportive of it, so.
Okay. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee K. Janice?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be H2. Is there a motion to approve a proclamation in support of Earth Day, Arbor Day on May 18th, 2013?
I so move.
First by trustee Sabo,
Second.
second by trustee DeVivo. Any discussion? Madam
Yes.
Clerk, go ahead, trustee Sabo.
Yes, yes.
Make
I would like the mayor to read this resolution.
You'd like me to read the resolution?
Well, you read so well, and we have to hear what it means.
Okay, here we go. A proclamation in support of Earth Day, Arbor Day, May 18, 2013. Whereas the first Earth Day was established with the goal of inspiring environmental awareness and encouraging the conservation, protection, and appreciation of our nation's natural resources, and whereas celebrating Earth Day, Arbor Day is in accordance with the Homer Glen Green Vision Statement, encourages all residents to protect valuable water resources, natural landscapes, wildlife habitats, and open spaces. And whereas the citizens of Homer Glen are committed not only to the protection and preservation of our environment, but also to the restoration of ecosystems and habitat. And whereas in the furtherance of this objective, the Earth Day, Arbor Day Committee is planning a variety of activities that include exhibits featuring green solutions, recycling, examples of efficient use of energy, and ideas for conserving and protecting our natural resources, as well as showcasing activities which connect children with nature and those that use natural products. And whereas Homer Glen proudly recognizes all who participate in Earth Day, Arbor Day for their dedication to taking a proactive role in shaping the future of our environment and in protecting Homer Glen's precious natural resources. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Homer Glen, support and recognize Earth Day, Arbor Day on Saturday, May 18th, 2013, by recommending to the residents and businesses of Homer Glen to participate in the event and learn about the role that natural resources play in sustaining a high quality of life in the community, and to encourage participation in natural resource protection and restoration efforts. Well, once we vote on it, approve this 10th day of April 2013.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
See, you even get applause for doing something right.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Next time you're reading it, Margaret. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee K. Janice?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, H3. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-017, an ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the issuance of building permits in the Black Rock Estate subdivision due to incomplete and unfinished public improvements as outlined in ordinance number 13-017?
So moved.
First by trustee DeVivo,
Second.
second by trustee K. Janice. Is there any further discussion? I have one thing to say before I call on you, Mike. We are trying to work with these developers. We want them to come in. We want to get this moratorium off as soon as possible. But what we do want to do is we want to make sure that they pay a portion of the improvements. The fact is that they're out there, you know, I'm hearing the crying side of this, but they're out there picking these lots up at dirt cheap, 30 cents on the dollar, and want to work and want to walk on all the improvements. There has to be something worked out with the developers, and I'm all for that, very quickly. I know Mr. Connolly was in today, and we'll work to get this resolved, but there has to be some proportionate share kicked in by the people that took these lots at 30, 35 cents, 40 cents on the dollar. So, let's
I'd
see
like to
here.
say something.
Trustee Costa?
Okay, the prevailing theme,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Trustee Costa?
He's yielding to you, Margaret, so it's up to you now.
I'm sorry, I didn't see his hand. Are you
Thank you, Mayor.
yielding?
Just
Are
a couple of comments. Part of what you said, I was going to ask a question about it, but I agree 100%. And also, developers and the public may not have the information in front of them that we haven't been able to read this, so, we are reaching out to the developers. My question is for an example, take this subdivision, and it would certainly apply to the other ones that we're going to be looking at tonight. If a developer has a lot in there right now, if a contractor or developer that has a lot there now and is not the developer of that subdivision, can he come in and get a permit? In other words, as an example, Trustee Yukich is a developer, but Trustee Costa bought one of his lots to build a house. What happens to me?
You making me the
Well,
bad guy?
in most,
explain it the best way I can explain it.
in most situations, there is no developer left.
Gotcha, okay.
What we did, and you know this, H&R Green went out, they did a study on each and every one of the subdivisions that did not have a letter of credit or had a letter of credit that was insufficient for the remaining improvements. And the question is what is going to be the equitable resolution to getting the final improvements for these people that have the largest investment of their life, that in most circumstances, people won't want to move in these subdivisions, and the people that are in them are strangled by the fact that they probably couldn't sell their home with all this out there before it gets resolved. So our intention is to move as quickly as possible with the developers, call them in, sit down with them, work on a number that's amicable for them, and then the village is going to be responsible for a portion. The village was responsible for not securing the letters of credit. So that's what we're trying to work on.
And again, I agree, just one final comment. We have talked about this. I just want to make sure that there was some explanation to everybody that we're just not arbitrarily doing this. We've reached out, we're trying to do something. We want to get these subdivisions finished, but we also have to have some dialogue with with builders or developers that one way or another may be either purchasing these lots or negotiating through a bank to get them, that we have a safeguard in there that this work is going to be done. And you clarified it. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Sabo?
Okay, the prevailing theme among the developers that were here was that they really wanted to try to work something out. So I'm taking your words and just trying to take that a little further, and that just because these ordinances would be approved today doesn't mean that it's a forever thing. In other words, it's a case-by-case situation where the developer comes in and tries to work with the village, and then we do some further legislation pertaining to each one of them.
That's correct.
That is
The
correct.
ultimate goal is to have staff come back to the village board in very soon. Mr. Connolly's here, so we'll use Cypress Point as an example. He's a major owner in the Cypress Point subdivision. We'd love to come back with a recommendation on a partnership between him, the bank that owns the other 4 lots that he doesn't own in Cypress Point, and come back with some kind of partnership that also lifted the moratorium, and try to do that as quickly as possible. That would be a wonderful thing for everyone, and we could get beyond these unfinished subdivisions sitting for years and years. So that's the goal.
The dialogue has already started with Mr. Connolly. So we're moving in the right direction. I want everybody to understand that this is I brought this up a long time ago. This is a huge concern that has to be rectified, and it's just a matter of getting them in, getting a resolution to what's going to go on in the subdivision, what is an agreeable amount of their portion for the final improvements, because they actually have taken the developer position. I mean, when you buy, a third of a subdivision, you might not have been the developer, but you're going to be selling a third of the subdivision. So there is responsibility there, and we want to identify that. We want to get it back to the board, lift the moratorium, issue them the permits, and this is the time to do it. And we'll get it done quick. We'll get it done real quick. Is there any further comments, Trustee K. Janis?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. What I'd like to just say on this ordinance and this motion that we're considering, I don't see it as the finite or the final. I see it's just paving the road, if you will, to opening and continuing the dialogue between the village and the developers, the builders, and these subdivisions. At this point in time, quite a few of our residents could be holding the bag on past decisions that were not apropos to our current environment today. So with this dialogue coming to staff from the builders/developers to bring in recommendations forward to us in the future, I think this is the course of action we take with this motion and consideration for this motion. And I'd like to see this go forward to keep the dialogue strong and in earnest.
It could be as simple as a dollar amount that is paid per permit that they pull, instead of having some type of, very large dollar amount that they would have to come up with if they owned a majority of the subdivision. As they come in and pull a permit at the village, the agreement that you make with them dollar-wise is the time that they come up with that amount of money. We want to get this done as much as anybody out there. We know the situation, we've done the study on it, and we're going to get it done. So, is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-018, an ordinance improving temporary moratorium on the issuance of building permits in the Cedar Brook subdivision due to incomplete and unfinished public improvements as outlined in ordinance number 13-018?
So moved.
First by trustee DeVivo,
Second.
second by trustee Kajanis. Is there any discussion?
I just have a question. You had mentioned that you had no conversations with the village.
None whatsoever, not by phone, not by any kind of letter.
Well, who have we been communicating with then? If- Who have we been,
The board has not given me direction to talk to this developer's office yet. So,
Okay.
We're trying to-
So
we're
is
trying
that
to
what
bring
this is
them in.
going to
There's-
be?
We had this conversation,
So
and then we
we're-
were going to make contact after these moratoriums are put in
Okay,
place.
Yes.
all right.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Yukich?
Wait, I still got a question.
Okay.
Weren't we just told that they had conversations with Mr. Conlon?
I have had, yeah, we did have conversations
with
today.
Mr. Connell.
Yes.
Just so the board is, so the board is aware that there was, at the time when the ordinances were prepared, there were no applications for permits pending. And on these first two ordinances, Black Rock and Cedar Brook, Black Rock, you have only one of 7 lots that has been improved. Cedar Brook, you had one of 30. Black Rock had an estimate from H.R. Green for the public improvements was just under $93,000. Cedar Brook was $1,319,000.
Right.
So in those two subdivisions, there has been no activity. You have basically nothing being done. Cypress Point, there was, I believe when Cypress Point was developed, there were 2 homes already there, and then of the remaining 20 lots, 9 were developed. And there you have approximately $345,000 of public improvements that have to be addressed in some way according to H.R. Green. But at the time when this was done, there were no, and I don't know if there are now, applications for building permits. No. But the concept was, as the mayor explained, let's get something on the books.
Get them in and talk.
Get them in and we'll talk to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, let's see, do we have a first and second on it?
Yes.
Okay,
And
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Okay, of 5, I'm going to have the Mayor Pro Temp read this one because my wife actually worked for Moore Builders and also worked in Cypress Point. That would be I-5. George, here it is. It's highlighted.
Should be right on the,
Right there?
it's right on,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay. Motion for consideration Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-019, an ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on the issuance of building permits in the Cypress Point subdivision due to the incomplete, unfinished public improvements as outlined in ordinance 13-019?
So moved.
First by trustee DeVivo,
Second.
second by trustee Kajianis.
Is there any?
Any questions? I'm new at this.
That's all right, you're doing okay. I think you should read the next proclamation, too. It's
Any discussion?
I'd like to,
No, public comment is over with.
All right.
Sorry about
Is
that.
there,
well, I'd like to recognize this lady if she has something important to say that has not been said before.
Well, I'm not presiding over this motion, so George, do whatever you want.
what do you want?
There is a lady that would like to comment on this, and I believe that we should let the lady speak if it is something that has not been said before.
Okay, let me just interject here for a second. That doesn't have to do, it's more with procedure here, so you know in the future, if the vice mayor allows you to speak, if you come to these meetings in the future, your turn to speak and address the board is through public comment, and there's a sign-up sheet over in the corner. Okay, now you do whatever you want, George.
Well, I'm asking.
He's saying, come on up and say what you want to say.
And not that it's gonna make any difference at all. Joan Pavlet, 15214 South Mackenzie, Homer Glen, Cypress Point. A couple of things just really upset me this evening. Number one, your comment about when they said you could be the developer or contractor, you said you're making me the bad guy. None of these contractors or builders are the bad guys. They started these developments when times were different. They're very different now. They didn't do anything to cause what's happening. You lost our LOC, okay? That should not be our problem or the developer's problem. And that has not been addressed since we were here last asking about what happened with it and what would happen because of it. Now we're responsible, and that is not right. That's my opinion. And to hear about this yesterday, and it's just going through, I just think that's wrong. That's just my opinion.
Go ahead, George, you're gonna have to handle this.
Well, you're correct. You're not the bad guy, and I shouldn't have said that. We're in a position here where some of the developers did sell off property. They did make some money. Unfortunately, the bottom fell out, and they ran out of money too. It's a situation that when they got into it, though, you kind of got to go in all in. And in a situation like this, you can't also make the taxpayers be responsible for someone's investment that went south. And that's what's happening right now. As for anyone that's living in that subdivision, them being responsible for it, it is a shame. A lot of you paid full amount for it. But there are a lot of lots in there that are being sold right now at a very big discount. If it's being sold at a discount, who's ever buying them should chip in to get it. Because if they don't, who are they gonna sell the house to? So all the mayor is trying to do here and the board is make a wrong right. And unfortunately, someone has to pay for it, no matter how you look at it. Everything is going wrong in this country now. Taxpayers are the ones that are paying for it.
That the board, the village, whatever in the transition, lost our LOC, which we had. I don't know if the other subdivisions have them or never have them. I don't know.
There are still that do have some, and there are some that do not have them. But, and yes, mistakes were made, both sides. But they have to be corrected. And unfortunately, someone has to pay for them. So for the developers or the builders that are buying the pieces of dirt right now at a discounted price, yes, they have to help chip in.
They bought them at full price and counted on it being full price.
Yeah, this is getting out of order, okay? We listened to Mr. Connolly once in public comment. We're willing to listen to this woman.
Okay. All right, so we got to bring it to vote.
Well, if I can.
Go.
Oh, you still have a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, may I?
Yes.
Make a comment, please? And I agree. You know, this is no fault of the people that have bought lots and built their homes in good faith in these subdivisions. It definitely was a inappropriate action that took place in Homer Glen from our village that we all live in. And it is all of our responsibilities, whether we are directly voting on it or not, but it is all our responsibilities as residents. At this point in time, what do? We know that there is a cost that will be involved going forward to complete these subdivisions. I would like to see these subdivisions completed. Like to see these public improvements completed in these subdivisions. I believe we owe it to our residents to complete these subdivisions just from a safety standpoint of our residents, of our own people in our Homer Glen community. These are our people. This is part of our village. We all shop together, we eat together, we work together, and we need to look out for each other at times and watch each other's backs. What I'm hoping for by this motion in this moratorium, that we could now create some better dialogue now from the residents, what the village needs to do, what the builders, and what the landowners of the vacant lands need to do to complete these subdivisions. That is my hope, is to start the dialogue. So I understand the possible situations that developed in the past are not a fortunate one. It's the residents that built their homes there, built them in good faith because they want to be part of Homer Glen. Just like 29 years ago, my wife and I wanted to be part of Homer Glen. So with that in mind, I empathize with what you just said. I just want to say, I do empathize with that. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Any other comments? Clerk, could you please, Madam Clerk, could you please bring it to the vote?
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee K.
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. I'd just like to address the lady that spoke real quick. We thoroughly get it that the village in certain circumstances is, you know, a responsible party in this thing. It's a bad scene that has to be rectified, and we're trying to partner with the owners of these lots. Not trying to charge you because you live there. The people that are gonna build the lots and make the money out of that subdivision, to put in some money, some skin in the game to rectify the bad situation. And we wanna do that ASAP, and I know Mr. Connolly talked with the village manager this morning. We're gonna be talking with the gentleman that we just had this moratorium put on, the 3 subdivisions, and that's what brings them to the table. That's what they're here for tonight. They knew this study was going on. They knew this study was completed, and nobody called us. So we'll get this thing done and rectify a wrong. Okay, this would be I6 or H6. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-020, an ordinance amending section 13 of ordinance number 01-022, providing for the control of alcoholic liquor within the village of Homer Glen? It is understood, let's see, that the number of Class A liquor licenses, restaurant with service bar, will increase from 1 to 2 within the village of Homer Glen.
So moved.
First that was trustee Costa,
Yes. Second.
second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee K.
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Motion carries. H7, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-021, an ordinance assigning available liquor A license, restaurant with service bar, to Rima Stanulianha. The company's name is La Crepe Company, DBA La Crepe Bistro, located at 13957 South Bell Road, Homer Glen, Illinois.
So moved.
First by trustee Costa,
Second.
second by trustee DeVivo. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee K. Janice.
Aye.
Trustee Sabo.
Aye.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo.
Aye.
Motion carries. I understand Rima is here this evening, and congratulations and best of luck. All righty.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask when the anticipated date of opening is?
Yeah, what's the anticipated date of
Ready.
opening?
I'm ready for crepes.
May 1st.
Very good.
Good for you.
Good luck with your business. Okay, let's see here. This would be H9, because we did H8. We moved it up to the first one. Is there a motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Homer Glen and Homer Township regarding the administration and sharing of expenses for Homer Harvest Days 2013, and to direct the mayor to sign said agreement?
So moved.
First by
Second.
trustee Costa, second by trustee Sabo. Is there any discussion?
Just a quick comment. It's on page 1 of 4, in the upper right-hand corner. It says that this has been approved by the Homer Township Board in January 14th, correct?
I can't hear you, Mike.
I'm sorry. First page in the upper right-hand corner of my copy, it says that this has been approved by the Township Board already in January.
I believe,
That is Elena's writing, so I'd assume that.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, thank you. That's all.
I believe I remember signing something along those lines, Mike. Okay, is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sabo.
Aye.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo.
Aye.
Trustee K. Janice.
Aye.
Motion carries. That concludes legislation and action items for tonight. The next item is I-1. The item is for discussion purposes only. The public hearing for the proposed budget will occur at the village board meeting on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2013. At that same meeting, as has been past practice, the board will consider the proposed budget for approval. Tonight, Manager Davis will be giving a brief PowerPoint presentation to the village board, informing them of the proposed budget for fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2013, and ending May 30th, 2014. Manager Davis, please begin.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Here in Village Hall, the definition of brief is a half hour. So if you have to get up and go to the restroom, please do. I will get through it as quickly as possible, but it is a $16 million proposed budget, so it does take a little bit of time. So, well, I didn't mean all at once. Mayor, would you like to?
Yeah, you know what? We'll
Okay.
take a 5-minute recess. Let's reconvene the village board meeting. The workshop item, the village manager will report on the proposed 2013-14 budget.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to give this presentation tonight. As the mayor said earlier, the public hearing will be held on the 23rd of April, and the board will consider the proposed budget at that time. Of course, John Sawyers and I, who've worked in partnership to put this budget together, are always happy to talk to the mayor and trustees. Already had a couple conversations. I'm happy to meet with you either on the phone or in person to go through the budget in greater detail. The main themes of this year's proposed budget include capital investments in stormwater improvements, of course, no new taxes, capital investments in new parks and trails, capital investments in intersection improvement, and of course, very fiscally conservative budget management, which has been the cornerstone of the village government for years. The balanced general fund is $7.2 million, and if it is okay with the group, I will just reference whole numbers. I won't read every single number. It will take me forever. So the balanced general fund is $7.9 million. The overall budgeted revenues is $14.4 million, and the overall budgeted expenses of the proposed budget is $16.8. Sometimes this confuses people because they look at the numbers and they say, oh, you're putting forth a budget that's in the red. Well, the general fund, the general operating budget is balanced. The difference between 14 and 16 million, that 2 million and some odd change, is money that has been built up over the years in specific funds that the board is choosing to spend now on public improvements, park improvements, intersection improvements, stormwater improvements. And oftentimes these improvements are very expensive and they happen in bunches. And so that's the reason for the difference between the 14 million in revenues and the 16 million in expenses you've saved up for years, and now you're spending on some large projects. Again, the general fund is balanced. The village has 6 traditional funds, and they're showing here on the screen and for the public to see. These are the funds that the village has had for years, and they continue in this proposed budget. There are 4 new funds: a special events fund, an environment fund, a debt service fund, and a CIP bond fund. Both the debt service fund and the CIP bond fund are the result of the action that the village board took earlier in the year in selling bonds. The other 2 funds are also direction from the board to create a special event fund for festival resources and to create an environment fund to basically account for all the spending that the village does on environmental related issues. This is a full accounting of all the funds, revenues, and expenses. It appears on the website along with this presentation. Shows all the revenues and expenses for all 10 funds. You'll notice at the bottom, in parentheses, there's a 40,000 on each side. These happen to be the general fund transfers this year. There are 2 $20,000 general fund transfers. Those are the only transfers from the general fund into other funds this year. In some other years, the numbers have been higher. In this instance, there is a $20,000 transfer into the special event fund to start it off, and there's also a $20,000 general fund transfer into the environment fund, again, to start it off. This is a good pie chart that shows where the revenue comes for the entire village budget, and as you see, the general fund makes up the lion's share of the revenue stream for the overall budget. Then comes debt service and the MFT fund. This is an outstanding graph. Most communities would envy this. It is a graph that shows the sales tax receipts from the 08-09 fiscal year up to the end of our current fiscal year, 12-13. And it shows a transformation from 2.3 million up to $6 million in sales tax, which of course is the lifeblood of the village financial revenue stream. This is a pie chart that shows the planned expenditures in the proposed budget, the overall budget. As you see, a majority of it, again, is in the general fund at 47%, followed by the MFT fund at 17%, the debt service fund at 12%, the CIP bond fund at 8%, and then the capital project fund and the park and recreation fund at 7%, with other smaller funds at 2%. Very quickly, here's a summary of the general fund. Your largest fund in the budget. Obviously, this is a summary of revenues. Sales tax is at the top at 3.1 million. State income tax, a very, very important revenue stream for the village, 2.2 million. Reimbursement, the R&B levy to the township highway department at 1.2 million. And then various other taxes, franchise fees, licenses, forfeitures that have been in place for years that round out to the $7.9 million in revenues. This is a pie chart showing the revenues, and obviously you see how important the 1% sales tax is to the general fund, and equally how important that state income tax number at 28% is to the village. This is a wonderful chart this year. Several years back, it wasn't looking too good. But what you see here is a difference between the fiscal year 08-09 on the far left, and on the far right, you see the proposed fiscal year 13-14 state income tax receipts. There's a wonderful trend, and we're getting back to the levels that we saw in 08-09. The 08-09 income tax year was our highest receipt income tax year, so we're getting back to close to the highest yearly totals we've seen. This is the proposed expenditures in the general fund. Of course, the number one expenditure is the public safety, the contractual services costs with Will County at $3.7 million. The transfer I mentioned earlier, totaling $40,000 to $20,000 transfers. Then you see the public works, the R&B levy to the highway department at $1.2 million. Personnel and benefits for the 10 full-time and several part-time staff members we have here at the village at $1.2 million. And then from contractual services down to legal, other expenditures that round out the $7.9 million in expenditures. I would point out that as we had last year, the board has available to it in this proposed budget $135,000 in contingency revenue for projects that may unexpectedly come up this next year, but have not yet been fully maybe formulated. This is a pie chart that shows expenditures. The sheriff's office and the public safety contract at 47%. That takes a majority of the general fund revenue. And then you see other general fund expenditures at 37%. And of course, the public works contract with the highway department at 16%. These are general fund initiatives and or major points that I just wanted to make in this proposed budget. There's been a 5% increase in the contractual sheriff services, costing the village $180,000 more money this year than last year. So a $180,000 increase in your sheriff costs. Obviously, long term, this is going to be a big issue for the village. It is very difficult to withstand increases that are of this size on an ongoing basis. So this will probably be an item of discussion for this next village board. Number two, there are budgeted cost of living and merit increases in this proposed budget. There are budgeted to purchase a new building department vehicle, allowing for the reassignment of a current building department vehicle to the EMA. There are no new taxes. There's budgeted, we have budgeted for new towing revenue, which the board discussed at the last meeting and will discuss again at your next village board meeting. There's budgeted upgrade for the village website, which we've been working on for a while, but we didn't quite get to this past year. That'll be a priority this coming year. And then we've budgeted to complete the village codification project, which is about 50 to 60% complete at this point. There's also budgeted for a new village hall copier. There's budgeting for refurbishment of the small entrance signs. I think the board knows we did the large signs this past year, and now we will be doing the small entrance signs to the community in this proposed budget. There's money budgeted to contract out for debris pickup on our major highways throughout the community on a contractual basis. There's money budgeted for a graduate student MPA intern. There is no increase in staff, but we are hoping that this graduate student intern will help us out here in very positive ways, as they do many communities in suburban Chicago. Number 12, we budgeted seed money for the transfers for the Special Event and Environment Fund, which I discussed earlier. We are budgeting to continue the mosquito abatement program at the higher level which you adjusted last year, additional sprayings last year, and we budgeted at that higher level. We budgeted to hold a strategic planning session for the staff and the village board. And a couple more additional items. There is budgeted money for the newsletter and for contractual assistance in actually producing the newsletter, and that means writing and putting it together. We have budgeted money for the continued commitment to staff professional development, which you know that I am very passionate about. We budgeted to paint various village hall spaces and install a new entrance awning to protect the clerical staff from the cold weather that comes in the winter. There is money budgeted to begin the comprehensive plan review. The full amount of a total cost of a comprehensive plan review is not in this budget. I was hoping that we could begin it sometime in the winter or early spring, and then budget for additional money in 2014-15. And finally, there is, as I mentioned earlier, $135,000 for a contingency fund. One of the new special events, one of the new funds is a special event fund. There is money on the revenue side for both the community festival and for the transfer from the general fund, and that totals $121,000 in combination. On the expenditure side, there is the community festival budgeted expenditures, and also we have to budget for the payment that is made to the township for the profits, because as you remember, we handle the budgeting for the festival, so that has to be a line item. And then, of course, on the expenditure side, we have $10,000 for Homer Harvest Days, bringing the total expenditures for the new special event fund to $100,000 and change. Initiatives obviously include the establishment of this new fund, being a wonderful and successful co-host of the community festival, and the same is true, of course, for the Homer Harvest Day Festival. The new environment fund, similarly, there's an environmental surcharge that has gone to environmental action activities in the past of $30,000. There's EAB grant income, which the village just was awarded at $20,000, and then of course the $20,000 transfer that I mentioned earlier for a grand total revenue a number of $70,000. On the expense side, there is a whole host of items. Some of them are smaller, but we wanted to make an account of all of them since this was a first-year fund. You see $39,000 for the public property tree survey. This is balanced by the $20,000 in grant revenue on the backside. So in reality, it's only costing the village $20,000 to do a full and complete inventory of our public trees. There's money that has been put in for either a paper shredding, electronic recycling, and or a household hazardous waste event, which the board can decide at a later date, but there is money set aside from that. There's arborist money, there's Earth Day, Arbor Day event money, and then you see in front of you a list of other items that are related to environmental programs and activities. The total is $64,380. The initiatives obviously including establishing the fund, finishing the tree survey over the course of the next year, and then of course continuing our long-standing practice of holding these successful environmentally related programs. On the MFT fund side of things, a long-established fund here in the village, on the revenue side you have $569,000 in MFT taxes, and then you have the capital bill MFT money and the high-growth MFT money, which together total approximately $130,000, and then interest income for a grand total when you combine it with the grant money or the transfer from Will County for the Lamont Road 143rd Street project of $2.7 million. On the expenditure side, that particular project, Lamont Road 143rd, is the biggest item coming out of the MFT fund at $2.5 million, and then you have other miscellaneous projects. I will say this, street signage is being budgeted for. It may or may not be the will of the board to actually move forward with this initiative, but what this initiative entails, this $99,000, is a complete replacement of major street signage on our major roads in the community, Bell Road, 143rd, to a larger size with a Homer Glen logo, so when people come into the community, they're able to actually read the street signs. They're similar street to street, and they are very well aware that they're in Homer Glen because it carries our logo on it. That has not been fully discussed by the village board, but there is money available if we so choose to move forward with it. If not, then that $99,000 will not be spent, and that money will remain in the MFT fund. This is a brief summary. At the end of next fiscal year, if all those things happen, the MFT fund will have $1.5 million, have a $1.5 million surplus. On the land acquisition fund side, there's a beginning balance right now of $2.1 million, which is wonderful. We've budgeted interest. We've also budgeted a couple expenses. There's $150,000 in there for the board to purchase potential parkland if you so choose. And there's also money in their professional services to help with the acquisition of that parkland. At the end of the year, if all those things happen, the land acquisition fund would have just over $2 million. The Park and Recreation Fund is a very exciting fund this year because there's a lot of potential good things going on. This is actually a photo of the Goodings Grove, potential Goodings Grove Park site. We still await the state's decision on the grant award for this, but we're thinking very positively. And so we have included it in the budget as a positive revenue item because we're hoping to get this grant and we're sending out that positive energy. There's $110,000 for the Erin Hills park grant, which we know we already have. And then there's Heroes Grant Trail money and park contributions from development and donations from the Heroes Trail Bench program, which will be a 50-50 program, which and the flagpoles that the mayor talked about a couple meetings ago, which brings us down to revenue of about $393,000. This is a photo of the Erin Hills Park site. I know the board is aware of this, but for the public's benefit, there's a better photo of it actually on our website at homerglenil.org. It's the future Erin Hills Park site that was just put out for RFP and will be coming before the village board for approval very, very soon. This is a list of all the proposed expenditures in the proposed budget, starting with park development at the top at $800,000. going all the way down to finishing off our park rule signage of 1,400, and any number of items in between that include additional development of the Heroes Trail, park benches on the Heroes Trail, the improvement of existing park equipment, the purchasing of new park equipment, and of course those maintenance items like electricity, water, and things of that nature. The grand total for that fund is $1.2 million. This is a very big expenditure, but this includes the development of 2 parks and a lot of other stuff too. So that's why it's rather large this year. This is and a lot of Heroes Trail development. This is a potential Heroes Trail addition. The board is well aware of this. We have a grant out for this. We're in phase 1 right now, completing phase 1 improvements, and this is the connection to the current Heroes Trail, basically kind of behind the Menards, connecting it over to the Goodings Grove School. The start of the year, there's a beginning balance of $1.2 million in the Park and Recreation Fund, and at the end of the year, if all those things are to happen, and everything works out beautifully, there'll be $388,000 left. Moving on to the debt service fund. The debt service fund, of course, had to be created to account for the bonding that the village did this past year. Therefore, the beginning balance obviously was 0. The budgeted revenue is $2.8 million. The budgeted expense is $1.9 million. That $2.8 million represents, of course, the home rule sales tax deposits that will go in to this new fund this year. That's what's paying off the bonds. And the $1.9 million represents $1.3 million in payments of the bond principal, and the rest of that money will be in interest on those bonds. So the surplus at the end of the year will be $856,000. Then moving on to the next fund, which is the capital project fund. This is the capital project fund that's been in place for years here at the village. The beginning balance of this fund is very healthy shape at $5.2 million. There is budgeted revenue of $165,000, budgeted expenditures of $1.1 million. And I want to talk about those budgeted expenditures for a moment, if I could. They of course are outlined in the budget in great detail. There's $93,000 that has been budgeted for LOC funded subdivision improvements. So as an example, you recently pulled the letter of credit for the Amberfield subdivision. There's still money left to spend for that subdivision, and that would be a part of the $93,000 that's been put in there. There happens to be $260,000 in there to finish some smaller stormwater improvement projects that we started, and there is $500,000 for non-LOC subdivision improvements. And if you ask me how I came up with $500,000, it is a place setter. I am not certain right now what the village board's wishes will be in terms of making improvements in the non-LOC subdivisions. I realize it's going to probably be more than $20,000, and so I had to put a number in, and that's the number that I put in. And it will go up or down depending on the board's wishes down the road. One of the other major items that's on this that we have not been able to get to this past year, and I regret not being able to get to it, is the streetlight retrofit project, which I have Jim dedicated to now, and he's working with the Environment Committee, and we have years, what was supposed to be year 3, 4, and 5 combined together to finish that project, and we're very committed to getting that done this fiscal year. And then, of course, the Amberfield and Cedar Brook subdivision money is a part of that fund too. And then moving on, only 2 more left. The CIP bond fund was created because of the bonding the village did this past year. It starts off with $16.9 million. There's $45,000 budgeted for interest. And then there's $175,000 budgeted for the grant money that we're going to be receiving from the state for the Oak Valley stormwater improvement. On the budgeted expense side, there is over $1 million budgeted for stormwater improvements. That part of our portion of the Oak Valley stormwater improvement is included in that $1 million, along with a considerable amount of money for other stormwater projects that have been identified. There's $163,000 that has been put in here for our expenses related to the water transmission line acquisition. And then general improvements that are outlined in the actual budget document of $107,000. So the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, the budgeted fund surplus would be 15.9 if all those things happened. I just kind of went through those very quickly without clicking. The two future initiatives that are not in the budget, but we will have some responsibility for, obviously, will be any public improvements that the village board decides to partner with IDOT on 159th Street. That would come out of this fund. And obviously, the ultimate item out of this fund, the purchase of the Bedford Park water transmission line, when ultimately the courts decide on that. This is a photo of the Oak Valley Stormwater Project improvement. The board is very familiar with this, but for the public's benefit, this will be one of the village's largest stormwater improvement projects happening in the Oak Valley subdivision, where we'll do a complete rebuild of their largest detention area. The final fund is the Tollway Fund, and this is great news. The Tollway Fund starts the year off with $1.1 million. It has budgeted revenue of $3,000 for interest, and a budgeted expense of $100,000, which is the payment to the toll authority. The village's costs for the 143rd Street toll ramp connection was $1.5 million, and so far the village has paid the tollway authority $350,000 per an agreement that was signed and approved by the village board many years ago. The budgeted fund surplus and expense will cover the remaining IDOT tollway obligations of $1.150 million. The final payment is due to IDOT December 31st, 2014. So this fund will actually disappear in the village's 2015-16 budget cycle. This is a wonderful testament to the village's planning. I'm sure that when they first were thinking about how they were going to pay for that 143rd Street toll ramp, there was a little bit of leap of faith, but obviously it's worked out beautifully. That is a quick summary. These are items I've already covered. A balanced general fund budget, 7.9, and then the overall revenues and expenses are shown. No new taxes, no municipal property taxes, big infrastructure improvement investments, and as has been the case for years, the village's financial shape is solid as a rock. So I'd be happy to take any questions that the board has.
Thank you, Kim. That was a great presentation. Covers pretty much everything. I don't have any questions because I was the one that worked on it with you, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I believe Trustee Sabo had a question.
Did you want us to have some of the missing pages, or did you know they were missing?
Are there well, if there are pages missing, we'll be happy to take care of those for you.
One was the graph on sales tax.
Okay, my PowerPoint presentation does not exactly match up with the items in the actual budget. I added some visuals to my PowerPoint so you wouldn't all fall asleep. No, they are not included in the actual budget document.
All right, also
there's a couple of, there's probably 4 or 5.
Income tax receipts wasn't included.
Right.
And then the all those fund initiatives.
Right. Those are actually a part of the PowerPoint, but they weren't part of the actual budget document. But if you would like to get those, I'll certainly provide them to you. And my PowerPoint is also on the village website at homerglenil.org.
Okay, are there any other questions for the village manager? Okay, then that concludes the workshop for tonight. Is there any old business? Okay. Is there any new business? All right. The next item is executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing executive session minutes, land acquisition, pending litigation, and employment performance and compensation? Need a motion?
I so move.
Okay, first by trustee Sabo. I don't care, you want to stay all night, that's fine. First by trustee Sabo.
Second.
Second by trustee Costa. Okay, we're gonna go into executive session and, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Okay, we're gonna go into executive session.